Hello friends, and welcome to a brand new camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A56 against the Redmi Note 14 Pro. On the A56 we are recording at 4K, while on the Redmi we are limited to 1080p. Tell me in the comment section below which one do you think has better colors and which one has a better audio.
As always, let's begin with a series of samples taken with the main cameras. But before that, let me explain the testing process for those who are new to the channel. Each daylight photo is taken in auto mode, with no edits applied afterward. When it comes to standard daylight shots, both phones capture impressive images. These days, even mid-range devices have solid processing, making them capable in most situations. That said, there are some key differences, so let's go over them. When people are in the frame, I notice that the Note 14 Pro makes faces appear more vibrant and adds a slight yellowish tint to the images. The A56, on the other hand, tends to produce photos with more muted colors. I observed this pattern in other scenes as well, particularly where some areas are bright while others are darker. For example, in this shot, the sky appears brighter on the Note 14, and the buildings on the sides are more illuminated and vibrant. The A56 captures a more accurate representation, but the image isn't as visually appealing. This processing approach isn't always ideal. In the next scene, the Note's image looks overexposed, while the A56 delivers a better balanced shot. Shadows are brighter on the Note, but the overall picture doesn't look as natural. This trend continues with their ultra-wide cameras as well. The A56 captures the scene more accurately, preserving the real-life contrast between the shadows and the sky. In comparison, the Note 14 Pro's image appears somewhat flat. In certain samples, however, I actually preferred the Note's results because it preserved finer details, such as the small blocks on this old building. On the A56, those same blocks appear overexposed, which wasn't how they looked in real life. There were instances where both phones produced nearly identical color tones. When it comes to detail, the A56 has an advantage since it captures ultra-wide shots at 12 megapixels, compared to the Note's 8 megapixels. Just like with their main cameras, the A56 tends to produce slightly flatter images with the ultra-wide lens, while the Note 14 Pro oversaturates elements like faces and the ground. If you prefer a more vibrant look, you can always enhance it in post-processing on the Galaxy. Photos taken at 2x follow a similar pattern. The A56 captures a sharper image, but once again, my face and clothing appear somewhat flat. On the Redmi, the image is less detailed, but the colors are noticeably more vibrant. In reality, either phone accurately preserves my natural skin tone. When there are no people in the frame, the A56 produces a slightly smoother image, while surprisingly, the Note appears a bit over-sharpened. This is unexpected, considering that up until now, it has been the one with less detail. Overall, both phones capture decent shots at 2x, but the A56 has a slight advantage since its images look more natural and less processed. Both phones also come with macro cameras, but as expected, they aren't particularly useful. The A56's macro camera is slightly better, but to be honest, I would have much preferred a dedicated telephoto lens instead. Meanwhile, the macro camera on the Redmi Note 14 Pro is one of the worst I've ever tested. When it comes to portraits, both phones deliver decent results for their price range. Just like with regular photos, the A56 produces slightly darker images, while the Note 14 Pro offers brighter and more vibrant colors. In this particular sample, I prefer the latter. On the other hand, in the next example, the excessive vibrancy and bright colors become overwhelming, even for someone like me who appreciates social media-ready photos. Yet again, the A56 captures a darker image, but I still prefer it over the overly saturated result from the Note. When it comes to the front cameras, the Galaxy A56 seems to handle skin tone accuracy better. On the Note, my face appears pale, which doesn't reflect how I actually look. The A56 isn't perfect, but it does a much better job than the Redmi. In terms of detail, both phones perform well, capturing sharp images with all my facial features clearly visible. By the way, if you're enjoying the videos so far, please consider subscribing to my channel. When recording videos with their main cameras, the first thing that immediately stood out to me was the noticeable difference in color tone, as well as the impressive stabilization that both devices offer. On the A56, the cobblestones have a purple tint, which I'm not particularly fond of. The Note 14 Pro, on the other hand, looks surprisingly cleaner and more natural in comparison. When switching to their ultra-wide cameras, there are a couple of important things worth noting. First, the Note can only shoot in 1080p, which limits its video capabilities compared to the A56. Additionally, the colors produced by the Note aren't as vibrant as those captured by the A56. The Galaxy also offers a wider field of view. Moving to low light, and from now on every picture is taken with night mode enabled. In this first sample, just like in daylight, the A56 does a better job with skin tone accuracy. It also handles my hair more naturally. On the Note, my skin tone appears off, and parts of my face are slightly overexposed. The Note 14 Pro also applies a smoothing effect that, in my opinion, ruins the image. I made sure to disable all beauty modes, yet as you can see, the effect is still present. Meanwhile, the A56 retains more of the finer details of my face. When it comes to their main cameras, the results are quite different. The Note's image has extremely bold and intense colors, while the A56, although brighter, doesn't look as pleasing. The Note is also sharper. In the next sample, the tables turn, and now the A56 provides a more detailed image. Its lighter colors also represent the scene better. It seems to me that the A56 tends to brighten the images, while the Note 14 Pro is usually darker but with colors that are too striking. At the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference. The A56 is particularly bright when there are people in the frame, yet it manages to retain more details of my face. The Note, on the other hand, is much darker, which I prefer because it represents the night scene more accurately. Still, some details have been lost in the process. The difference is huge when we switch to their ultra-wide cameras. As you can see, the Note is much darker, and the picture is barely usable. The one taken with the A56 is much brighter, and although the light sources are more distracting, I think the overall picture is better. Not every scene favors the A56, though. For example, in this case, I actually prefer the picture taken with the Note 14 Pro, even though it remains dimmer than the A56. If you prefer bright images, then the A56 is the better choice. Nevertheless, if you prefer pictures that don't turn the night into daylight, I believe the Note is a better option. It sacrifices some details but better represents the night ambience. To me, these results are surprising because during the day, it was the Note 14 Pro that consistently produced brighter pictures, but for night shots, it was often darker compared to the A56. 2x pictures taken at night are done with digital zoom, and to my eyes, it seems the A56 offers more detail than the Note 14 Pro. The difference becomes even more noticeable in the next sample, with my face appearing sharp on the A56 and blurry on the Note. In terms of colors, I actually prefer the Redmi device. This next sample perfectly highlights Samsung's advantage, as it is much sharper than the Note, despite the latter having a 200-megapixel main camera. Samsung's software just does a better job. Portraits taken at night are particularly interesting. As you can see, the results are quite different from each other. The A56 features warmer colors, and the background blur is more pronounced. The Note, on the other hand, has cooler tones and a more subtle blur. Personal preference plays a significant role here. In other samples, I found that the Note 14 Pro actually preserves more of my facial details. The A56 is also very good, but in this shot my face isn't as sharp. So, what do you think? Which one do you consider the winner? To me, they're very similar in most samples, with the A56 performing better in ultra-wide shots and 2x zoom. Beyond that, they're essentially neck and neck. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.